how the subject of stylistics is related to and how does it originate from, how is it rooted in the ancient classical subject of rhetoric. Rhetoric was the art of public speaking. It was the art of speaking effectively in the ancient classical era. ठीक है? Classical era से हमारी मुराद है the 5th century, the 4th century BC, when Aristotle was writing, when Socrates had lived his life. There was his student Plato and Aristotle. That was the classical era, Greek classical era. Then we come to the Roman civilization, to the Roman rhetoricians and teachers of rhetoric. कि वो क्या कहते हैं? कि why is it important? How can we create a style of speech? Okay, it's okay. ठीक है, so we are talking about, हम क्या बात करें? We are talking about rhetoric and how the subject of rhetoric was adopted by, it was taught in European universities, and how did it evolve into linguistics, and how currently stylistics is the subject in which the ancient classical art or the subject, the discipline of rhetoric was there in the classical era with this name, and now we have other terms for it. In the beginning of the chapter, हम ताल्लुक बना रहे हैं कि rhetoric, how the classical subject of rhetoric, which was there as a major subject during the Roman Empire, during the Roman civilization, in the era of the Roman Empire, how rhetoric was a compulsory subject in European universities in the 18th century, in the 19th century, in the beginning of the 19th century, and how stylistics as a present day subject, as a contemporary subject, is related to, is rooted in, and it originates from the subject, the discipline of rhetoric. तो आप हर बात में connections बनाते जाएं. It is given in the beginning of the chapter that in the classical, ancient classical era, Greek era, in the 5th century BC, and if I ask you for the exact year, that is 475 BC, आज से 2500 साल पहले, I keep on repeating this, 2500 years back, there was a man who was named Corex in the city of Syracuse, and he was the one who told people he initiated the subject, the discipline of rhetoric. Rhetoric is the art of effective speaking. It is the art of persuasive public speaking. ये बात भी आप जहन में रखें कि why I keep on saying this, कि at that point of time, people were not educated. There were no schools. There were academies, very few academies established. लेकिन the means and materials for writing and for reading were few. They were in dearth. ठीक है, manuscripts पे, खालों पे लिखा जाता था. Certain kinds of leaves पे लिखा जाता था. It was used for a wooden stick. लकड़ी का एक बारीक सी thin सी stick सी बनाई जाती थी. And the tip of it was a very sharp one. उससे clay की जो tablets हैं, clay की tablets बना के उनके अंदर shapes बनाई जाती थी. So whatever writing was done with the help of that pen-like thing with a sharp tip, that was called, that implement, that device, that object was called stylus, जो एक कलम की तरह था, और वो clay tablets, मट्टी की जो tablets बनी है, उन पे लिखने के लिए इस्तेमाल किया जाता था. STILUS. Okay, so Corex was the one who started telling people that if you use language effectively, if you use language in a good way, in a persuasive way, it can benefit you in real, in pragmatic, in practical life. There were common, ordinary people, and they used to go to courts in order to defend themselves, in order to accuse other people of certain crimes which they had committed, but they could not win the cases, they could not win their basic rights, because they could not speak well. ठीक है, आपको दलाइल देने, जैसे वकील दलाइल देते हैं, तो उसने, he started this whole affair of speaking well. He told people, and he started earning through it. उसने profession में, this is the way you can speak in a very clear, in a very simple way, with a logical, with a solid, substantial argument, and you can win your cases. So style is not something which is academic or which is literary only. You can use it in practical life, and this it began this way. ठीक है? And this is very interesting कि it was related to only in democracy can you try to create a style. You can think on your language the way you are using language, and you can think of ways in which you can use it effectively. ठीक है? You can use variation and you can use stylistic variation in your language use, but it can happen only in democracy. When you are living under general dictators like General Ziaul Haq, or there are so many other people, तो तब तो आपको आज़ादी से ना बात करने की इजाज़त है, ना आपका काम पब्लिश होगा, ना आपकी बात सुनी जाएगी. There is no need for style, because for developing style, because people are not listened to. When your oral speeches, your spoken speeches, or your writings are banned, there is no need for. And I'm not going to go into the details of those examples, but I discussed these examples. Take the example of Salman Rushdie, take the example of Manto, take the example of Ismat Chughtai, take the example of the present day contemporary Pakistani English writer Ali Sethi, who has written the novel The Wishmaker. डेमोक्रेसी के अंदर जहाँ पे आपको थोड़ी बहुत आज़ादी हो कि आप बात कर सके, then you try to think of ways in which you can improve your language use, your style. You can create your style, the appropriate style for your content. जहाँ पे आज़ादी ना हो. So at that point of time in the Greek states, they were mostly democratic, and it was ruled by the states were ruled by demos, by the people. रियाया हुकूमत कहती थी. Okay, from coming, so Corex was the one who started teaching people how to use language effectively, persuasively. Persuasive term or persuasion is the word which is associated with rhetoric. जब आप लिखते हैं, तहरीर करते हैं, अभी हम उस बात पे आएंगे कि उसके बहुत सारे मकासद हो सकते हैं. लेकिन for speech, in order to convince people, convincing people is a major function which is associated with language which is spoken. Then we come to the 4th century, and there were the sophists and there was Plato. Sophists were the scholars, whatever the rest of their beliefs were. How did they differ from Plato's and Socratic philosophy? ये तो philosophical debates हैं, but they were the scholars who also lived, and they kind of continued the tradition of Corex. और उन्होंने भी लोगों को, rhetoric became a profession, telling people, teaching people. They established academies for the purpose कि जहाँ पे the art of good, effective public speaking लोगों को सिखाई जाए. Plato was against them. Plato had his own academy. तो अब आप ये देख सकते हैं कि sophists thought कि if you use language in a simple way, in a logical way, in a clear way, and you can use certain terminologies, maybe they were kind of sophisticated or they were simpler, whatever is the kind, if you use language a certain way, then you can convince other people of your argument. ठीक है? और ये उन्होंने academies बना ली, and they started teaching, and they started benefiting from it. Not benefiting, but earning from it. ठीक है? Plato was against them. You have read about his philosophy. He said that he called all this embellishment. He called this lexical and syntactic trickery. That if you are, according to him, we have discussed it already, and your mind should be on its toes. He thought that if you're truthful, सच्ची बात करें, you're logical, अक्ली, कोई अक्ल की, कोई इंटेलेक्चुअल कन्विक्शन की बात करें, इंटेलेक्चुअली कन्विंस कर सके जो, और बी एथिकल अबाउट इट, ऑब्जर्व सर्टेन मॉरल स्टैंडर्ड्स, एंड यू विल कन्विंस पीपल. देयर इज नथिंग एल्स व्हिच इज नीडेड फॉर परसुएडिंग पीपल. ठीक है? उसने कहा कि ये सारी एम्बेलिशमेंट जो है, इट इज अ सोर्स ऑफ अर्निंग मनी, दिस टीचिंग एंड एकेडमीज एंड ऑल. उसको नहीं पता था कि आजकल भी एकेडमीज हैं, डिपार्टमेंट्स हैं जिसमें क्रिएटिव राइटिंग एंड कॉम्पोजिशन एंड एसे राइटिंग, एंड दीज आर लाइक पीपल अर्न थ्रू इट. इफ दे डोंट बेनिफिट फ्रॉम इट, they earn from it. So he was against it and he did not follow it, but the rest of this tradition continued. From Corex as the first one, the sophists who established academies for the purpose, और उन्होंने कहा कि emotional appeal भी होनी चाहिए, logical appeal भी होनी चाहिए आपकी बात में. It should attract people in this way, ठीक है, logically as well and rationally as well as emotionally, and your language should be worked on. it is like a tool in your hand and you should keep on refining it for the whatever your context is. ठीक है, यही फिर एरिस्टोटल ने किताब लिखी और हमारी सारी बाकी जो डिस्कशन है वो एरिस्टोटल पे ही, उसके जो 5 canons of rhetoric है and how these are the 5 major subjects in stylistics, these are related to that. ठीक है, तो हम एरिस्टोटल को briefly mention करके कि he became the major influence, we come to the Roman civilization and the 2 major rhetoricians. One was Cicero and the other was Quintilian. These are mentioned in the book. ठीक है, जब बुक को आप पढ़ेंगे in the light of this lecture and you think on it, things will become clear to you. ठीक है, but you are not doing any effort for it, I must remind you. During the Roman era, the era of Roman civilization, Cicero was the one who said कि ये जो all this art of speaking, the one we are working on, the one we are laboring on, the one we are spending time and money on, इसके 3 मकासद हैं. There are 3 major functions to it. Number 1 was to teach, to persuade. Second was to persuade, and the third one was to delight. Okay, right from day one, from 2500 years back, the use of language in speech, since writing was a comparatively lesser activity, or it could not be followed the way it is followed in the contemporary era because of the limited means and materials and all, and limited scholarship as well. So rhetoric, a lot of importance was given to the use of language, what style deals with, stylistics deals with as a subject. So the use of language in speeches, it was right 2500 years back, people turned it into a profession. How can you use language effectively? How can you use it? You can use it logically. How can you use it in a clear way, clarity to it, appropriateness to it, so many virtues, and you can embellish it, you can decorate it, you can apply variations to it. So we have the sophists and we have corrects. And when we come to the Roman civilization, Cicero was the one who was, or Cicero, some people call him, he was the famous rhetorician, and he also talked about कि जो public speaking है उसमें 3 parts हो, logically convincing ho, it should delight as well, and it should teach something as well. And then we come to the other Roman writer, rhetorician, that is Quintilian. It is mentioned in the book. If you read the book, you will come to know. और क्विंटिलियन ने ही established an academy कि जिसमें rhetoric के subject को it was followed on 14 levels, right from creating stories, orally creating stories, because I don't think at that point of time people had the means to, for each and every student to make him sit or to make her sit and to write down things, or like there were papers and all. So orally these activities were conducted. उनको बताया जाता है कि to create stories, then how to conduct a trial in a court, and then how to speak political speeches. If you are part of a political forum, if you are part of the parliament or a council or something in democracies, so how are you going to speak? These 14 levels were adopted, and in all these levels, the use of language, the way language was used, it was given a lot of attention and significance. अच्छा, 5 कैनन्स जो एरिस्टोटल जिनकी बात करता है वो बहुत ही अहम है, और मैं ये भी बताती हूँ कि ये सिर्फ लिटरेरी राइटिंग्स में अहम नहीं है. ये अगर आप ऐसे लिखते हैं, आप पब्लिक स्पीच करते हैं, आप कोई भी कॉम्पोजिशन करते हैं, फॉर एनी काइंड ऑफ कॉम्पोजिशन, एरिस्टोटल के ये रूल्स ऐसे हैं, कैनन्स ऐसे हैं, प्रिंसिपल्स ऐसे हैं, और स्टाइलिस्टिक वेरिएशन भी. स्टाइलिस्टिक्स में ये तीनों जो फर्स्ट 3 पार्ट्स ऑफ द कैनन है, दे आर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. पहले कैनन में वो क्या, पहले तो वो कहता है कि लिंग्विस्टिक एक्टिविटी में देयर आर 2 लेवल्स. ऐसा ही है, देयर आर 2 लेवल्स. वन इज द मैक्रो लेवल एंड द अदर वन इज माइक्रो लेवल. मैक्रो लेवल कहता है, ही कॉल्स दिस लेवल कि माइक्रो लेवल पे तो हो गए कि अल्फाज आपने कौन से चुने, आपने जुमले कैसे तहरीर किए, आपने पैराग्राफ कैसे कंपोज किया, टॉपिक सेंटेंस लिखा कि नहीं, बोला कि नहीं, पैराग्राफ हुआ कैसे, वाइंडिंग अप स्टेटमेंट आपकी क्या है, जब आप सारे पैराग्राफ्स लिख लेते हैं, सपोज इफ यू टेक द एग्जांपल ऑफ एन ऐसे, देन आपका मैक्रो लेवल शुरू हो जाता है। दिस आर्ग्यूमेंट इन दिस पैराग्राफ, दिस आर्ग्यूमेंट इन दिस पैराग्राफ, कौन सा उसकी अरेंजमेंट, उसकी ओवरऑल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑन द मैक्रो लेवल, ऑन द ब्रॉडर लेवल, उसको ही कॉल्स इट स्ट्रक्चरिंग योर स्पीच or giving your speech or you're writing a structure, but basically he's talking about speech. उसको आप एक overall structure देते हैं, and this in stylistics we play with the structure, we innovate the structure, and then you go to the minor things. ठीक है, यहाँ पे metaphorical language है, figures of speech है, यहाँ पे ये lexical choices हैं, यहाँ पे syntax ऐसे है, तो these are the this is the micro level. उसके जो 5 कैनन्स हैं, नंबर 1 उसका मैं आपको बताती हूँ, दिस इज वेरी मच रिलेटेड टू स्टाइलिस्टिक्स. नंबर 1 इज डिस्कवरी और इन्वेंशन. ठीक है, डिस्कवरी में के 2 पार्ट्स हैं, बल्कि उसके जो दूसरा पार्ट है, फिर द होल ऑफ हिज आर्ग्यूमेंट, अभी हम वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द फर्स्ट कैनन ऑफ रेटरिक. वो कहता है कि एरिस्टोटल सेज, ठीक है, don't ever say he said, he says कि the very first canon of rhetoric is discovery or invention. Now this is what is also divided into parts. Number 1 part है, briefly saying it for you, इसमें वो बताता है कि number 1 is discovery और invention. सबसे पहले तो आप या इन्वेंट करते हैं या डिस्कवर करते हैं. डिस्कवर का मतलब है कि कोई चीज पहले से है, यू जस्ट फाइंड इट, यू रिकॉग्नाइज इट, यू आइडेंटिफाई. इन्वेंट का मतलब ये है कि खुद से कुछ चीजें क्रिएटिवली कंबाइन करके और जनरेट करके और क्रिएट करके समथिंग डिफरेंट यू कम अप विथ. You come up, the very first thing is when you are writing, when you are speaking, is the proposition, is the thesis statement. It is the topic, it is the content, it is the central idea, it is the motif, it is the theme of your work, it is the subject or topic you are going to talk about. जब आप मजमून लिखते हैं तो टॉपिक चुनते हैं, जब आप तकरीर करते हैं तो टॉपिक चुनते हैं. प्रोपोजिशन होती है, इट्स बेसिकली योर थीसिस. ये आपका थीसिस होता है, ये आपकी स्टेटमेंट होती है, ये आपका उन्वान या मजमून या टॉपिक होता है. यू शुड कम. अब ऐसा है कि माशरे में कोई, यू कैन, there are so many topics scattered around you. You can talk about corruption, you can talk about feminism and this and that, blah blah blah. कोई टॉपिक है जिसके बारे में आज तक किसी ने नहीं सोचा, and you bring it up, you create it and you turn it into a topic and you bring it to the notice of people and you want to talk about it or you want to write about it. That is invention. That is your creativity. Combining two things. ठीक है? You're not talking about the rights of man, you're not talking about the rights of women, you're talking about how a better division of labor can be created between the two genders. सारा मसला ही division of labor का है. You all of a sudden you, like, people are talking about one thing or another and you have a creative combination as a topic out of it. The second part, ठीक है, आपने proposition topic आपने चुन लिया. The second part is that कि then you start generating proofs, or what is called in the book is proofs or evidences for it. जब आप बात करते हैं तो you do it with solid evidences, arguments, instances, facts and figures, things which support, which bolster your proposition. अपनी थीसिस को, अपनी थीसिस स्टेटमेंट को सपोर्ट करने के लिए कुछ हकाइक, कुछ एविडेंसेस, कुछ सबूत, शवाहिद जिस भी फॉर्म में हो, वाकयात की, रूल्स की फॉर्म में हो, व्हाटएवर इज द. He says they are divided into two parts: external evidences, external proofs, and internal ones. External, though, he has given the example of research, the writer has discussed it. Aristotle says कि external sources are those, evidences or proofs are those जो आपको external writings में मिलती हैं, external life में मिलती हैं. You can quote them. जैसे law की उसने example दी है कि if you are supporting a stance, उसमें you can cite a law which is written in a document, in a book. रिसर्च में हम ऐसे करते हैं, जब हम रिसर्च करते हैं और हम कहते हैं कि वी वांट टू कंडक्ट रिसर्च ऑन दिस strain or this theme in this work, then we conduct literature review on it, और हम बताते हैं कि इस राइटर ने इस बारे में या इस एस्पेक्ट के बारे में बात की है। वी साइट जिसको एक्सटर्नल सोर्सेस कहा जाता है, जिनको सेकेंडरी सोर्सेस कहा जाता है, कि इन राइटर्स ने ये बातें की हैं, एंड दैट इज व्हाई वी कैन से दैट दिस टेक्स्ट इज रिच इन दिस कंटेंट। लेकिन उसका एम्फेसिस एक्सटर्नल तो कोई भी आइडेंटिफाई कर सकता है, ठीक है। जैसे आप कहते हैं कि कोई भी बात, कोई भी टॉपिक को सपोर्ट करने के लिए एक्सटर्नल एविडेंसेस और प्रूफ्स यू कैन फाइंड अराउंड यू इन बुक्स, इन रियल लाइफ सिचुएशंस, यू कैन फाइंड देम। वो ज्यादा एरिस्टोटल का एम्फेसिस जो डिस्कवरी या इन्वेंशियो फेज में है, कि जहाँ पे टॉपिक आप इन्वेंट करते हैं या डिस्कवर करते हैं, और उसका सारा आर्ग्यूमेंट ही इसी पे है कि जो आपकी इंटरनल मोड ऑफ इंटरनल जनरेशन, इंटरनल क्रिएशन ऑफ एविडेंसेस हैं, जो आप खुद से करते हैं, जो आप क्रिएट करते हैं, दैट इज मोर इम्पोर्टेंट, ठीक है। उसमें वो बताता है कि इंटरनल जो मोड ऑफ परसुएडिंग पीपल है, उसके 3 पार्ट्स हैं। वन इज लोगोस, द अदर वन इज पैथोस, एंड द थर्ड वन इज ईथोस, ठीक है। ये आपके पास कुछ टूल्स हैं। जब आप क्रिएट करते हैं ना, एक्सटर्नली तो आप साइट करते हैं, इंटरनल मोड के लिए, परसुएसिवनेस के लिए, कन्विंस करने के लिए इन तीन लेवल्स पे इंटरनली, क्रिएटिवली, इन योर ओन पर्सन यू विल हैव टू वर्क, ठीक है। अंदर से आपको कोई लॉजिक, कोई इमोशनल कमिटमेंट, एन अपील, एंड देन ईथॉस जनरेट करनी होगी, क्रिएट करनी होगी इंटरनली फ्रॉम विद इन द स्पीकर। लॉजिक में पूरा वो डिटेल से ही टेल्स के देखें आप इमोशनली लोगों को बेवकूफ बना सकते हैं, यू कैन मूव देम, दे कैन बी कैरिड अवे, बट वंस दे आर लॉजिकल क्रीचर्स, थिंकिंग क्रीचर्स, then they will see the linguistic trickery at the back of your speech, ठीक है। वो समझ जाएंगे कि उस वक्त वो जज्बात से। I cite the example of मिशाल खान्स केस कि जी blasphemy है, he has said something blasphemous, and ordinary people, the mob is always unruly, it is always, crowd जो होता है ना कॉन्सर्ट्स में आप देखते हैं, हजूम में देखते हैं, वो हमेशा it is carried away by emotions। लेकिन for those people who are quiet, intellectual, thinking people, and when you are alone, you are this kind of a creature। एरिस्टोटल कहता है कि अंदर से भी एक लोगोस आपको क्रिएट होना, इंटेलेक्चुअल कन्विक्शन आपकी भी होनी चाहिए, और आप उस इंटेलेक्चुअल कन्विक्शन को यू कैन जनरेट इट, यू कैन क्रिएट इट फॉर द ऑडियंस एज वेल। He said there are 4 major parts of it, 3 major parts of it, 3 ways of doing it, जिससे आप लॉजिकली, इंटेलेक्चुअली कन्विंस कर सके। वन इज द इंडक्टिव मैथोडोलॉजी, द अदर वन इज द डिडक्टिव मैथोडोलॉजी, एंड द अदर वन इज सिलोजिस्टिक वेज और सिलोजिज्म, एंड एंथीमेमिक वेज विच और एंथीमीम इज अ पार्ट ऑफ इट। अब मैं आपको सिर्फ ब्रीफली, बिकॉज वी हैव टू फिनिश द सब्जेक्ट, जैसे अभी मैंने मिसाल दी कि समटाइम्स इंडक्टिव मेथोडोलॉजी के, ठीक है, यू साइट स्पेसिफिक एग्जांपल्स के ऐसे भी दिस पर्सन प्लेज दिस वे। आई गेव द एग्जांपल ऑफ रॉजर फेडरर कि द ब्रिस्ट मूवमेंट इज वेरी स्ट्रॉन्ग, लेग्स आर एजाइल एंड फ्लेक्सिबल, एंड दिस इज द वे द होल ऑफ द स्पेस इन द टेनिस कोर्ट इज यूटिलाइज्ड, and this is the best tennis player in the world, Roger Federer. मैंने specific instances बताई, and I derived कि the top player, this could be, if these qualities are there, this is going to be the top player in the world, and that is Roger Federer. Suppose if I say it this way, ठीक है। ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि जब आप कहेंगे यार the person is wrist movement is so flexible and strong, ये भी characteristic है, ये भी है, तो it will make the best player. You derive the conclusion that these characteristics will make the best player. फिर मैं ऐसा होता है कि I say Roger Federer is the best tennis player in the world right now, और फिर मैं वो elaborate, अच्छा एक proposition मैंने general दे दी, a statement, and then I am going to like उस best से कि अच्छा ऐसा भी होता है, this is the way he does it, this is the way। बाद में मैं specific examples उस जनरल से रिलेट करके उसको प्रूव करने के लिए बताती हूँ. देयर आर टू वेज, इंडक्टिव मेथड एंड डिडक्टिव मेथोडोलॉजी. रीड अबाउट इट. यू आर गोइंग टू यूज इट इन मैनी मैनी वेज. तो आपको इंडक्टिव मेथड का और डिडक्टिव मेथड का पता होना चाहिए. Then he says that syllogistic ways we use. जैसे one of the students gave a good example, और generally हम यही example use करते हैं. And he gave this example that he said it in relation to a certain ethnicity. कि अच्छा, लेकिन we are going to use it in general. कि जैसे I personally gave this example कि syllogistic way of कि Imran is a human being. All human beings die. Second part, Imran will die one day. ये आर्ग्यूमेंट है ना कि सारे इस सिचुएशंस में ऐसा होता है, ये सिचुएशन ऐसी है तो इसमें भी ऐसा ही होगा. ठीक है? You're getting the point? You're getting the point? No?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes.
ठीक है. तो like one proposition supported, rooted in another common sense, another logic. तमाम, अगर वो इंसान, इमरान is a human being, all human beings die. तो इसका मतलब ये है कि इमरान will die. आप बात को स्पेसिफिक चीजों को जनरल के साथ, जनरल को स्पेसिफिक के साथ जोड़ के in a certain order you can apply logic, and this is how you can convince people. Anti-memic ways are those in which one part is missing. Either I will say Imran is a human being, Imran will die. So the middle proposition, all human beings die, it can be missed out. But the audience, जो भी आप इस तरह की proposition एक develop करते हैं, logical statements develop करते हैं कि all dogs bark, my pet is a dog, my pet will bark. ठीक है? जो भी whatever is your argument, a kind of a way of developing argument. तो उसमें से if one part is missing and the readers are going to infer कि हाँ, this is what is meant, and it intellectually stimulates the audience or the readers, it is called anti-meme or anti-memic way of arguing. The basic point is this: you have to be logically convinced, intellectually convinced as a speaker, as a writer of the proposition. You are going to be intellectually convinced of the evidences you are going to support. In literature as well, you can apply this कि जो भी आप बात करते हैं उसमें कोई वेटेज होनी चाहिए, इंटेलेक्चुअल वेट होना चाहिए. ठीक है? You should be an intellectual wrestler. तो he says कि logos में you can use inductive method, you can use deductive method, you can exercise syllogism, and you can exercise anti-meme or anti-memic ways of writing and speaking. Then he says कि pathos is very important. Pathos means the emotional conviction, the emotional commitment of the speaker, and the emotions that he can trigger through language in the audience. Audience इंसान है, आप as a speaker, as a writer इंसान है. इंसान जो है वो सिर्फ अक्ल नहीं है. ठीक है? आप सिर्फ जहन नहीं है, आप दिल भी हैं. आप जिस्म भी हैं, आप दिल भी हैं, आप जहन भी हैं. और अगर कोई तीनों लेवल्स पे आपको अपील करता है, then that is the best kind of attraction, I would say. ठीक है? So he says कि people are in real life, he did not agree with his teacher Plato. बहुत सारे राइटर्स जो एरिस्टोटल को फॉलो करते हैं, so ये कहा कि इमोशनल अपील भी होनी चाहिए. पीपल इन एवरीडे कम्युनिकेशन आर, जैसे अगर मैं आपसे कहूँ कि ये काम आप कर लें, इससे आपको बहुत फायदा होगा, आपकी सेहत अच्छी होगी, आपको दौलत मिलेगी, तो यू माइट नॉट बी मोटिवेटेड. लेकिन अगर मैं आपसे कहूँ कि ये थोड़ा सा काम कर लें, इससे एक गरीब फैमिली को, सपोज इफ आई से दिस टू यू, की जिंदगी 1 साल के लिए बड़े आराम से गुजर जाएगी, एंड यू फील फॉर, you have emotions for the rest of humanity. आप फौरन से निकल आते हैं and you contribute to the cause. ठीक है? So ये emotional इंटेलेक्ट, मुझे क्या फायदा होगा अगर मैं गरीबों की मदद करूं? और 1 साल में करूँ, यू हैव ऑल काइंड ऑफ रैशनैलिटीज, 1 साल करूंगी और फिर कौन करेगा, इससे कोई एक बंदे की मेहनत से या काम से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। दिमाग आपको 1000 दलाइल लेगा, लेकिन दिल अगर किसी बात की हिमायत में बोल पड़ा तो देन यू विल मूव। So he said, Aristotle says कि pathos, that is emotions are important in the speaker. Emotions triggered, kind of emotional language, emotions triggered by language. And the emotions, उसने कहा कि स्पीच में आप परफॉर्मेंस जो आप देते हैं, in that even emotions are can be triggered by your performance. And he said that if you understand social psychology, individual psychology, human beings are carried away, they are moved by emotions, so emotions are not. जैसे प्लेटो ने कहा था कि they are not, we should not be making, we should be making a logical appeal, but not to pathos. So pathos भी उसकी राइटिंग में बहुत important है, और लिटरेचर में this plays a dominant role. ये जो लिटरेरी राइटर्स हैं ना, they stir emotions. They transform emotions and they attract emotions. Then the third part was pathos, ethos, sorry, that there should be an ethical standard. There should be an ethical character of the speaker. Whatever he is speaking, it should observe certain ethical standards. Ethos भी होना चाहिए, और जो आपकी credibility है, reliability है, your social standing है, जो आपका moral standard है, वो that is already, that plays a great part. अगर हमें पता चले, like most of the people, when they come to know that Salman Rushdie has these kinds of beliefs, तो they try not to read him. तो ethical standards भी आपके कुछ moral standards भी होते हैं. इस तरह इसी चैप्टर में ड्यूरिंग द पीरियड ऑफ रेनेसांस में these are related to the basic thing, the very first thing, कि how to discover ideas. लेकिन these were followed by the writers in Renaissance as well. The other thing was arrangement. कि आप किस तरह से, once you form paragraphs, once you form evidences and you form arguments, you write them, how are you going to arrange them? And the third was stylization. ठीक है, rhetoric में जो 5 canons थे, उसमें पहला था discovery, which was very logos, pathos and ethos. This was important. The second one was arrangement. Sometimes on the spur of the moment, looking at your audience, you can change, you can play with the arrangement of एक पैराग्राफ आप पहले बोल लेते हैं, जुमला आप पहले बोल लेते हैं. Similarly, it is in the case of literary writing, you can change the arrangement, the structural organization of your literary composition, and it can create a different style. ठीक है? And then we come to stylization was the third canon, was the third part of the 5 canons of rhetoric given by ancient classical writers, and particularly by Aristotle. Stylization, by stylization he meant कि how do you, the kinds of words, the kind of syntax, the kinds of figures of speech. He has, Aristotle ने आज से 2500 साल पहले metaphors का जिक्र किया है, figures of speech का जिक्र किया है, कि this is, if you use these, this is stylization. When you look at each and every item and you improve it, and you think this will be able to persuade your audience or you. And then the other 2 parts, memorization and delivery. I think in literary writing, since stylistics is concerned with literature, तो हमें memorization की कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है. It's a creative activity. And delivery तो we do it in writing. So 2 canons को आप, जो 2 parts of the canon है, उनको आप ignore कर सकते हैं. But stylization, arrangement, and discovery or invention, जिसमें logos, pathos and ethos आते हैं, these are important. Stylization is the third part of the 5, the third canon of rhetoric. कि कैसे words को कौन सी lexical choice करनी है, which vocabulary are you going to choose, which syntactical order are you going to choose, how are you going to, which kinds of sentences, periodic sentences or loose sentences. There is a variety of sentences. Which sentences, for what purpose, for what content, which clauses, which variety of clauses. Are you going to use simple clauses? Are you going to use complex clauses? Are you going to use compound clauses? हर चीज जो है, it adds to your style and you have to study language this way. Arrangement is the overall organization of it. So the three parts of the literary canon, this canon of rhetoric is important. And it is said कि Renaissance में भी अगर rhetoric में क्या कुछ parts add किए गए हैं. These are sometimes when you are writing, you have to establish, you have to introduce the subject, which we follow in essay nowadays. Okay, when you are going to deliver a good speech or a good piece of non-literary writing, so you have to introduce the subject, then you have to establish a background for it, and then you have to arrange your arguments. ठीक है, argumentation होगी, support in support of the topic, counter arguments होंगे, and then conclusion होगा. तो ये arrangement was there for rhetoric in the period of Renaissance. ठीक है. अरेंजमेंट और स्टाइलाइजेशन जो है उसके बारे में थोड़ी सी बात करते हैं, एंड दैट विल बी इट. कि जो एरिस्टोटल ने बात की अरेंजमेंट की, उसमें कॉन्सेप्ट है द ग्रीक कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ टाइम, कि टाइम वाज नॉट लीनियर, देयर वाज अलोकेटिव टाइम, जिसको हम राइट नाउ राइट हियर कहते हैं. सपोज यू आर writing for a certain audience, or you have composed a speech for a certain audience. Aristotle said कि arrangement में once you are in the practical situation, जैसे मोहसिन हामिद ने कहा कि the reluctant fundamentalist, he started writing before 9/11. He started writing and people thought that he started writing it after 9/11, but no, उसने कुछ चीजें change की. He said in his interviews, he says it in his interviews, that he changed the direction of his narrative, but it was established, he took a start with it before 9/11. तो एरिस्टोटल का कहना है कि कभी कभी ऐसा होता है कि आप चीजें लिखते हैं, but when you deliver it to the audience, you change the order of it, the arrangement of it. Patience and the struggle for it. When you go to the audience, you feel they are charged, and you bring this paragraph on the struggle of women, the contemporary struggle of women, to the front, and then you talk about their rights, and then you talk about something else. ठीक है? So आप arrangement के साथ you can play with the arrangement. जैसे there is a movie, there is a book, there is a movie based on a book, कि जिसमें when the novel begins, you see the corpse, you see the dead body of the protagonist in a river, in a swimming pool or in a river. ऐसे भी कहानी शुरू करते हैं, and then the narrator takes you back to the life events and to particularly to the incident which happened, resulted in his death. ऐसा नहीं होता कि पैदा हो जाता है, the protagonist is born, he is raised as a child, वो adult हो जाता है, he comes across conflicts. ऐसे भी होता है, when he is dead, his dead body is shown to you, and then through flashbacks you are taken to the past. So these are techniques, and these are ways of doing things. Aristotle कहता है कि we should not stick to. You will be a poor learner, you will be a poor writer, you will be a poor speaker if you stick to a linear concept of time and to a linear structure. जो जहन में बनाया है कि मैंने ऐसे ही बोलना है, और जब जाके बदला हुआ होता है audience, the time is, the moment is different, you should arrange your content according to it. Stylization में वो कहता है कि grammatically you should be correct in your language, and this is a very good sentence in the book. Style is icing. This is a question actually. Style is icing or is it the whole of the cake? Style cake होता है, उसके ऊपर icing होती है. This is what he has discussed, and you are going to decide it for yourself. Aristotle has talked about linguistic clarity, the scale of it, the range of it, the propriety of it, the syntax of it, the metaphors which are used, the kinds of sentences which are just paratactic style होता है आपका, या didactic style होता है, ये loose sentences होता है, आपका low style होता है, middle style होता है, या high style होता है. All these things are briefly mentioned there, and these are going to be a part of your writing style. ठीक है? वो बताता है कि अगर आप इस तरह के sentences, if you are going to write in a low style, these are the kinds of sentences you would be using. If you're using a middle style, वो कहता है कि low style हम education में use करते हैं, simple and clear, no ornamentation, no embellishment. High art for persuading masses. लेकिन अब तो ऐसा ही है कि we can choose कि हमने low style use करना है in a very mild way. We are going to put across our message in a very passionate way, assertive way. We are going to put across our message. So the use of language and stylization is something which he has mentioned in rhetoric, but on the micro level and on the macro level. Arrangement is on the macro level. Stylization, lexical items, selection of sentences, selection of figures of speech. These are on the micro level when you take every sentence into account. और उसमें आप metaphor या personification या simile या कुछ भी alliteration, assonance, consonants वगैरह use करते हैं. I think that is it. You read the chapter in the light of it, and then have you got all the points clear?